Hi, this is a video to show that the Numark IDJ3 with the dock for the iPod and the iPhone is not really faulty. However, there is an issue with the technical support that is being given by Numark. Now, I've received a Numark IDJ3 with the iPod and iPhone dock, and when I first received it, it was working fine with the virtual DJ software. And what's happened is on the internet, as you know, there are plenty of videos telling you that there are issues with the IDJ3 with regards to the software, putting the software onto your computer. Now, this is true, especially with the 64-bit computers, the laptops. And I've tried on 4 different computers, which I will show you, to try and put this software on, and I keep getting the error, which is a timeout error, ending in quadruple 05. And the information that is on the internet is to upgrade the firmware so that you have a new version of the firmware, and therefore the software 2.9.11 that's available at the Numark website can be installed onto whatever laptop, whether it be a 32 or 64-bit laptop or computer or desktop or a Mac. There's also a Mac software there available. Now, I'm going to explain to you all the procedure that I've made, that it might help you in some way, and you'll have to avoid the incompetence and the terrible service that you get from Numark technical support. Numark technical support are supposed to be there for you. I've called them twice in America from Australia, left a message on their answering machine for them to get back to me, and I haven't received any call yet. This has been 2 days now, 3 days. They say they're going to get back to you in 48 hours. Well, it's nonsense. I think personally that this is a manufacturing flaw, that the firmware cannot be put on without minimal trouble. When a company makes a product and they say that you can upgrade the firmware, and this particular person from technical support said to me not to upgrade the software, not to upgrade the firmware rather, avoid it unless it's absolutely necessary, he said. Now, it was absolutely necessary because the software that I was trying to install for my 64-bit computer wouldn't work, and that was the recommendation, to install the new firmware. So that's an upgrade or an update of the firmware. Tried to do it, followed the procedures which I will show you, and no go. Won't work. Now it's like a frozen, there's no reset, like it's been frozen, and the firmware won't go on it. So there's definitely a manufacturing flaw with the IDJ3 with regards to upgrading the firmware. I'm going to go through the procedure now, exactly what I've done, and you will see, and I hope this will be helpful to you, you will see exactly what's happened. Remember that when I first got the controller, the IDJ3 controller, it was working fine. The person who I bought it from, this is second hand by the way, the person who I bought it from had it working right in front of me with their laptop. And left channel to right channel without any trouble, and receiving the songs, loading songs. It was fully functional with their particular software, their particular driver. Got the disc, I'll show you everything bit by bit, and we can go through it, and then you can come to the conclusion of whether you think that I'm right or I'm wrong. And I know that I haven't been treated right by Numark. For me, even though it's second hand, they should be supplying me a service. Imagine all the products out there that you've purchased in your time that they say has become obsolete in the last 2 years or whatever. You should still be entitled to some information or a method of being able to fix that product. Otherwise, what, you're going to spend $1,000 on a product and then they expect you to just consider it obsolete after 2 years, and there goes your $1,000 because there's no customer support to fix it or no method to fix it. That's rubbish for me. There is a method to fix it, they just can't be bothered. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so this is the second part now of the video where I'll show you the procedure of how to set up the Numark with the laptop. This happens to be a 64-bit computer. This is what's been told to us by the Numark technician. So if you like to come over here with the camera, and you can see now that I have the IDJ3 set up here with the Numark dock for the iPhone and the iPod. Okay. Here's the laptop that's just booted up now. Right. Now, what I'm going to do is what's been written on the procedure that's been given to me by the technical support is to hold the sync button and the shutter button at the same time and plug the USB cable to the laptop. This will start the procedure for the installation of the firmware. So hold that down, plug the USB cable into the laptop. As you can see, the light's coming on to show. There. Now, because this controller here has already gone past that procedure of the installation of the firmware, this is why I have a problem with this product. The key lock buttons are not supposed to come on. Only supposed to come on are the QA and the QB. So what you do is you press the QA and QB and it'll go across to the number 1 there, which says it's ready to be set up for the firmware to be installed from your laptop. Okay. Now, these key lock buttons are not supposed to come up. The reason why they come up, I don't know. They can't even explain it to me at Numark neither, why it's come on. I've asked them 5 times and still haven't got a decent reply about. They just keep beating around the bush all the time and talk about virtual DJ and all other products that are involved, like Mixed Vibes and so forth. And they just don't want to give you a straight answer about why these 2 lights are coming on instead of just these 2 by themselves. So as you can see, I'll press A and B together and I'll go across to the 1. This is supposed to be now in the state that's ready for the firmware to be sent across to the controller from the laptop. Okay. Now I've tried this with 64-bit. I've tried it with another 3 32-bit computers. Okay. And still the controller is not being seen by the laptop. The MIDI OX program, as you can see, the MIDI OX program or the Send SX program, which are sending firmware across to the controller, you have what they call a SYX file, and this is your file extension for firmware files. Okay. So the Send SX and the MIDI OX will send that file, the packets of those files, across. However, the controller, this particular controller, or the IDJ3 in general, if it has this problem, it will not receive the controller, because when you send the packets across, the controller's LED lights are supposed to flash and illuminate and flash in sequence to show that there is data being transferred across from the laptop to the controller. However, this is not happening with this one. So I'm going to show you in the next video, which is going to be looped up together with this video and the previous one, that procedure of sending the packets across to the controller. Okay, press pause now. Okay, first of all, I'm going to show you Bohm's Send SEX, and also then I'm going to show you MIDI OX. Now, these are the 2 main programs that have been recommended by Numark to send the SYX file, which is the firmware, across to the controller. This is a 64-bit computer. So I start the program up. When you go to the menu, which is the MIDI out for sending the firmware, you have an IDJ3 option there. Maybe if you zoom in a little bit closer. As you can see, it says IDJ3. It also says Microsoft GS Wavetable Synthesizer and a MIDI mapper. So when I press the IDJ3, it's supposed to recognize the controller. There we go. Cannot open MIDI output device IDJ3, undefined external error is the error message that you get. I close that. Down the bottom here you can see the error, cannot open MIDI output device IDJ3. Now as far as loading the file, which is the firmware, you haven't got a trouble with loading the file. So we go to the database where the files are. We go to all files. Here is the firmware. IDJ3 firmware update 1.03. This has been sent to me by the Numark technician. I open that up. It loads the file. But however, you cannot get the controller to be read by the MIDI OX or the Bohm's Send XX program. You try and send it, it'll send the package down the bottom here. It'll send the package, right? As you can see, if you zoom in there, you can see that the package is being sent. See the bits, it's sending the lines. However, you have no MIDI receiving. You have the controller is not receiving the data from this program, so therefore it's just being sent to nothing. Because over here you're supposed to be seeing all of the lights illuminating as that transfer is being made. So I'm going to show you again on a 32-bit computer next with the MIDI program, the firmware program working properly. Next I'm going to show you a 32-bit computer, because this is being a 64 computer. I'm going to show you a 32-bit computer with the Send SX program working properly, sending the packets, recognizing the controller, and even though it recognizes the controller, it still will not send the packets over. Okay, now we have a different 32-bit laptop set up. The other one was 64. This is a 32-bit laptop now. As you can see, I have the Send SX program here as well, which I've just loaded. I have the cable plugged in. I have the controller connected. Once again, when I disconnected the controller from the 64-bit and put it into the 32-bit computer, you see these 4 LED lights have lit up again. See, it's only supposed to be the 2. Now I didn't press the starter or the sync button this time to go through to that procedure, because this controller is already has already deleted the old firmware and is ready for the new firmware to be installed. So that means you have to press the A and B together and it'll go across the same procedure as before, waiting for the firmware to be installed. Now this is the main issue why I'm doing this video, is to find out why those 4 LED lights were lit up. Why? The Numark people cannot tell me this. This controller is in a state right now for having the firmware put on, a new firmware upgrade. I'm thinking that when there's no firmware on the controller, the 4 light up to show you that there is no firmware on the controller. When there is firmware on the controller, only the 2 light up, because it's ready to be deleted so that new firmware can go on. So the 4 lights, for my mind, show that there is no firmware on the computer, on the controller. So now we're waiting to send the packets across. As you can see on the 32-bit computer, I've set up the MIDI out. You go up to the main menu here and you can see the IDJ3 option. You press it and there we are. Opened MIDI out to the IDJ3. So it's receiving a signal of some kind from the IDJ3 and it's showing that it's ready for a data transfer. Okay, so the cable set up. Now I'm going to press send. Well, first of all I'm going to line up software that's supposed to be sent, sorry, the firmware that's supposed to be sent across. So now we have the controller set up ready to receive the firmware, and we have the Send SX program ready to send the firmware, as you can see. It's loaded the firmware ready to be sent. When I press the MIDI out, the IDJ3 is part of the menu. I've done that. Now the port is open. I'm sending the packets. Sending MIDI out data. Now, if your IDJ3 hasn't had the firmware taken off, possibly what's happened is maybe your firmware will go across to the controller. However, this particular IDJ3 has had the firmware taken off. They do say that you must delete the firmware first before you have the new firmware put on, and that's what I've done. But with this particular controller now, the lights are not flashing, as you can see. The data is being sent. It's rolling over there. The focus of the camera is not too good, but the data is rolling over. There we go. Sending the packets, but the controller is not receiving the data and is not upgrading to the new firmware, because there's supposed to be lights flashing all over the place here with the LED lights. So if this is the problem that you are having, right, good luck, because Numark don't want to help you. I've tried, I've rang them up twice in America, I've sent multiple emails. The only distributor that they have here is in Melbourne, and they're trying their best to help. They're trying to get an answer from Numark in America as well, and they can't get any answer neither. So what they probably want you to do is send the controller to them, right, in a box at your expense, so that they can just use whatever little program they have, or maybe even change the chip so that it's a chip that is already got the firmware put on it, and therefore it's at your cost, it's at your expense. They'll send it back to you and say, oh yeah, no, the problem was this and that, but really it's a manufacturing flaw. For me, it's a manufacturing flaw on Numark's part for the IDJ3, and they should be able to fix this problem for you at no charge. That's what I think, because it's a manufacturing flaw. It's only a simple thing, just change the firmware, that's it. They recommend you to do it, you know. So anyway, I hope this video can be helpful to you. Okay, be quiet, I'm just making the conclusion now. So, the conclusion is, do not buy the IDJ3 from Numark. If you want this sort of trouble, then you're asking for it. Get something different. I would recommend getting the Pioneer, the DDJ Ergo, or maybe the WeGo. Something that's modern, that's now, that's new, and that has a competent technical support here, based in Australia or based close to where you are in the world. And also, Pioneer have a better quality product as well. You know, I will never buy another Numark product because of the way I've been treated, and also the incompetence and the lack of manufacturing expertise and professionalism and stability of Numark's products. Right? You might have used Numark products elsewhere, somewhere, and I have too in the past. However, I did not expect that something so simple as upgrading your firmware on a controller would be this difficult, and therefore I'm going to avoid that problem in the future by just staying away from what I know does not work, or I can't get help to get the problem fixed. So good luck. Once again, do not buy this product, IDJ3 from Numark. Do not buy it. Okay, you'd be asking for trouble. Get something from Pioneer, something a bit more modern, Even if you have to spend an extra $200, just wait an extra 2 or 3 weeks or a month for your pay, so that you'll be able to buy the product that's a little bit more expensive and of better quality, which will be easier for you to do any changes, software upgrades, firmware upgrades, anything like that. Because for my mind, a firmware upgrade should not be a difficult thing. It's software. It's just transfer of data through to the controller. It should be very simple. Alright, well, take care. Good luck with your work. I hope you get plenty of work. Have a very prosperous 2013. And I'll talk to you next time about something else, no doubt on YouTube. See you later.